did want to talk about these columns of masked Muslim men chanting Allahu Akbar in London in a protest against UKIP. Now, this protest was primarily about the Islamification of Britain, the UKIP one. And it's almost like the masked Muslim men that then came in to try and defend themselves were almost sort of reinforcing what the initial protest was about. So it was sort of this very, very interesting mix of those for and against. And I think the point was almost made by them being there. We should have some footage of it, but while we get that up, I would like to welcome to the show George Madgwick. He is from Reform UK. He's the leader of Portsmouth City Council. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Samara. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. All the better to see you. I've definitely been wanting to have a chat to you. I mean, we've got a couple stories to get into, but I did want to talk about this protest. I mean, when I think about sort of community division, the videos that I saw plastered all over X sort of portray a Britain that is in complete disrepute at the moment with itself, and a Britain that's almost at breaking point. And almost, I'm sorry to say, but a civil war-esque atmosphere out on the streets of London. What did you think of those protests this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, you're completely correct, and I think your analysis of it is absolutely accurate. There does feel to be this mass division, and it's happened across the summer with the protests. We've seen it. And I was just speaking to one of my councillor colleagues this morning, and we are feeling the same thing. I don't think there's ever been a point in our political lifetime where we've seen such division from the left and right, and it's almost made the middle ground, the centre ground, almost murky, as though it kind of doesn't exist right now. It's a very strange time to be in politics. There seems to be a mass movement on the left where there is, in my opinion, a two-tier justice system. I mean, you've got the images on your screen there, and we are literally seeing masked men on the street that are not being stopped by police. These people are obviously clearly being intimidating. They're covering their faces, they're covering their identity. It is very intimidating for the people. It is causing a concern, and this is happening nationwide. It's not just a localised issue now. We are seeing it everywhere, and Tower Hamlet is one of the places where we're getting big problems.
Massively so. I mean, even when I just think about a story I was covering earlier on this month with the Pakistani flags that they had been draping over, but also at the same time denouncing the Union Jack as a council, you start to think, who is this council actually sticking up for? Now, I have no problem with the Muslim community in Britain. A lot of them contribute massively to this country, and we thank them for that. But this is where I start to say, hey, this is really something else here. This is some sort of ulterior motive that they're pushing, and something that is very much anti-Brit. And when I see Palestinian flags being flown, there were other flags, I think there was Pakistani flags as well included in those. And then also a quote that said, one protester shouted, UKIP came specifically targeting Islam. They said, we are coming on a crusade. We need to take back our streets. Now, the UKIP march was obviously cancelled, but this was able to go ahead. So what does that say about our policing? Do you think this is two-tier?
Absolutely, and I think we've felt this, as I say, across the entire summer there's been a two-tier system. I mean, I even noticed myself in Portsmouth, you probably know we had a lot of protest in Portsmouth.
Massively.
And there was an immediate difference between the police in Portsmouth, and it's something that I raised with the Police and Crime Commissioner, because when we got there, the police, for no reason, were standing in front of the left-wing protesters, the Stand Up to Racism protesters, and almost protecting them, but they were the ones that were wearing the balaclavas. They were the ones that were shouting the abuse and getting nasty and getting violent. But yet the police were almost protecting them. The police also ushered them to a bus to allow them to leave the area safely. You know, this wasn't being done for the other side of the protest. So absolutely, there is a complete reinforcement of a two-tier system here. It is complete double standards. And as I say, we are seeing this everywhere. We are seeing this everywhere.
Yeah, you're right. This is not just a Whitechapel, Tower Hamlets thing. I mean, in one clip, a protester holding a Stand Up to Racism-sponsored placard, we know Stand Up to Racism has a lot to answer for, could be heard saying, there's no need for that, we're on the same side. Allahu Akbar, God is great. I mean, I just don't think that, as you said, there is no midpoint with this. There's only one extreme to the other, and that's where we really start to see issues here. I mean, Pete, did you want to say something on this? Pete Barnes is here, by the way, George.
Hi, George. It's nice to see you. One thing I will say is I think people overshot when they said this was the end of woke. I think what we're seeing are woke institutions like a wounded animal backed into a corner, and we all know that makes them more dangerous than ever because the old levers, the old hands that they played aren't working and they don't know what to do, and that's why they're scrambling. That's why we have digital ID. That's why everybody's far right. That's why all this stuff is being pumped out en masse, because they know their power is slipping. For a very long time, they held civil society, the corporate world, the legal world, and to a degree, the political world. And now that is starting to wane thanks to parties like Reform, but also thanks to things like the grooming scandal, thanks to things like the cost of living crisis, thanks to the migrant crisis. All of these things have compounded a complete distrust of the institutions that told you diversity is our strength. That phrase will go down as the tombstone on the epitaph of Britain. It really will. Diversity is our strength, because it isn't, and it never was. Unity is our strength. The things that bind us together were our strength. Diversity is fine, but it's unity that makes Britain Britain. Always has been. And the more that we kind of divide ourselves, and I will say the right is getting very guilty of this as well. We're wandering into certain dangerous paths, I think. But we have to stick to what binds us together and what holds us together. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be a bigger battle now than we thought there was ever going to be. We thought it was hard before. It's got to be twice as hard now.
George, would you agree with that statement?
I mean, yeah, look, I've been present at these things, and you're completely right, Pete. I think where we've changed nowadays, and if we need to look at these protests over the summer, we need to look at what's going on now. But where I think we need to really pay attention is the fact that the protests currently are not these stereotypical right-wing protest anymore. We have got women, grandparents, veterans, disabled people, children attending these protests. We have got people from different ethnic backgrounds. We've got different people from different cultures at these protests. I was with somebody that's literally a migrant from the Middle East at a protest who was being called a racist by Stand Up to Racism. It's mind-blowing.
You couldn't make it up, could you?
You couldn't. And I think what's happened is this centre ground, or the people that are usually in the centre, have been labelled as far right by these extreme left people. And as I say, it's got so murky now. And I said to a good friend of mine the other day, when you're standing so far to the left of somebody, even somebody in the centre appears as though you're on your right.
I couldn't agree more with that.
It's bad.
Yeah, it is really bad. But also, it is the false dichotomy of our politics that you're either this or you're that. That has made things so much worse. It has made nuance non-existent. It has made political litmus tests on the left and on the right. So therefore, you've got to believe in everything. Otherwise, you're not a real conservative. You've got to believe in everything. Otherwise, you're not a real social. Like, these kind of broad terms have become like categories, and you've got to tick all the boxes, ironically, for a box-tick society. And it's one thing that's really tearing us apart. It means we can't come together to fix a problem because we're too busy screaming at each other that the other one caused it or the other one is enticing it and all the rest of it. At some point, we all have to put down our weapons and fix a problem. And I would suggest we do it over the grooming gangs because it is kids. It's kids. Why can't we get together in a room and fix a problem when it comes to children and their safety? That is the biggest moral stain out of everything we've seen in the last, 20 years, I would say. It is absolutely repugnant that even now, everybody is playing politics with this issue. Everybody. And it's exhausting.
I mean, that in itself is a very divisive topic. I mean, I did want to get your thoughts on that, George, because Reform has really, really led the charge when it comes to holding people to account with the grooming gangs. I saw Farage today with a friend of the show, Ellie Reynolds, who is a grooming gang survivor, and he was giving her a proper platform, something that Jess Phillips tried to deny her. Let's talk about the grooming gangs. I mean, what do you think is going to go on with this inquiry? Because at the moment, Labour has shown yet another time that they're completely incompetent.
They are. They're completely incompetent. They don't really... I think the problem is they don't really understand anymore what the real working class is. I think they've lost what Labour is fundamentally about. The Labour Party of now is not the Labour Party of late. You know, they don't represent real people anymore. They don't represent the people on the ground. And I think this is where Reform is completely and utterly saturating the market, because we understand people on the ground, because we are people on the ground. You know, I don't come from a political background. background in any capacity whatsoever. You know, I live on the ground floor, and I think that's what a lot of people in reform are. They're real lived experience people, and I think things like this we're not scared to talk about. I think the establishment for so long has been terrified, absolutely terrified to talk about these things. We've known that through the Conservatives and through Labour, and systematically institutions have tried to cover up things, or not talk about things and not disclose things. And finally, there's been people from across the country, usually used in citizenship journalism and programs like yourself, to exploit these things. I mean, we had it in Portsmouth. You remember, Pete, because I was on one of the shows you were on before, where we had a cover-up scandal of our city council that were trying to cover up the alleged rape of a young girl by a migrant. And we exposed that, and it created national headlines. But these institutions are still, despite the Casey report, they are still attempting to cover up these things to save face. And it's getting to a point now where there has to be a tipping point, and people are now waking up to this, and that is what's causing all these issues.
I couldn't agree more. One thing, sorry, Samara, one thing I will say, and the reason this has all happened, we have the data. We've got the increase in crime. We've got the cost to the economy. We've got the cost, the social cost. We've got the political cost, the legal cost. We have the facts right now, which we haven't had able to get access to because we've had to demand the facts. We've had to have the people tell us the information, which is just a bizarre concept to me. But because we've been able to shift the Overton window, shift the conversation away from that traditional type of protest into things like the Pink Ladies, into these great protests in Epic, which have been policed by themselves, which have been peaceful, which have been effective in much more than most political protests are anyway, about getting attention, but keeping attention as well. That's the big thing. And also, because they've been peaceful, they've not been able to be smeared and boxed off. That has been the fundamental thing. The Pink Ladies in Epping changed the debate more than anybody has in 20 years. More anybody, and they should be celebrated, and they should be on the fourth plinth as far as I'm concerned.
No, but you're right, but their standard is much higher. I mean, I was on one of those marches probably 2 weekends ago, and the organizer was stressed out of his mind. I mean, he kept saying to me, we're peaceful, we're peaceful, we're peaceful, and it was. There was children, there were mums, there were a bunch of prams on the march. We were walking to a local migrant hotel that they were protesting outside. But the amount of police there was staggering. I've never seen that many police in my life. It was about 200 police. They were looking for anyone to make one wrong move. And I didn't see that this weekend at those anti-UKIP protests. I did not see that there. So that's when you start to say, okay, why are we siding with one group over the other? Why are the police doing that? And no, you make a good point as to, you know, with the two-tier system. It just genuinely exists, and I think people are so fed up with it. And you're right, it's people having to choose between feeding their children. I mean, there was an interview that I did with a woman saying, I have to choose between giving my child lunch or dinner, and I see these migrants living in a 4-star hotel across the road from me with 3 meals a day. And that's the heart of what's actually going on. But Labour doesn't seem to understand any of that.
No, and also what they're doing, and you've probably seen this as well, but they're now using HMOs as dispersal accommodation. They're taking away family homes, converting them into houses of multiple occupancy, which are meant to be used for the most vulnerable people of our society, the people on the lowest earnings. And now we are seeing multiple cases, hundreds of cases across the UK, where private contractors employed by the Home Office are using Section 22s to evict people that are good tenants to make way for migrants. And in Portsmouth, we know this is a case, I can talk about it factually. Guess where some people that were evicted from the HMOs went? You guessed it, a hotel. So we're now putting our residents who are being evicted, the most at risk in our society, we're removing them from their properties to make way for migrants into communities next to schools, next to hospitals, next to areas that we don't know. We don't know these people, and people are rightly concerned. And we're finding a disproportionate number of migrants being dispersed to certain areas as well, into certain pockets, which is where these hot places are coming up, and these hotbeds, because residents are noticing a real impact. But then what happens is in other areas where they're not being dispersed fairly, these areas are thinking, well, what's the problem? We're not seeing this problem on our doorstep.
Let's be frank, George. I mean, there's no migrant hotels in Islington, is there? It's the working class that are constantly put on the front lines of this invasion in this country. And that's what absolutely irks me, because they know that they won't have a voice loud enough to speak up about these issues. They know that they won't complain, or when they do complain, they can be labelled as far right, etc. I think that it's a very strategic placement for these asylum hotels, as you say. And you know, it just absolutely boils my blood. Genuinely.
Yeah, I was going to say the prime example is Epping.
Yes.
It's when they went from 1 to 3 hotels in the space of about 9 months. And yet that was just a matter of the algorithm. I've been in the room when these things are done. It's never the algorithm. It is all done by politics, because an MP does not want a migrant hotel in their constituency because of the issues that they come with them. Everybody knows it, yet nobody will say it. And that is the big problem, actually, is that these decisions are being made politically, not what is fair. A word that will define the next general election, by the way. It is about fairness. And I tell you now, the Labour Party just don't get it. They just don't get it. And
let's not forget what was said in that Epping Bell Hotel ruling. The rights of the migrants trump the rights of the British people. Or Trump wasn't exactly the word, but they go above the rights of the British people.